Once again, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Focus on Liberia. This is FOL Marketplace, a discussion forum for business, economics, and finance. Today, our discussion, we're going to discuss the impact of the coronavirus on the economy. That is the Liberian economy. We can make some specific reference to the Liberian economy, but it impacts the global economy. So, with me to discuss this, I have my panelist, Mr. Morris.
Yeah, I'm good, mom. You can be here.
Morris, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you, Ja. Thank you, Ja, for welcoming me back today on this all important program. It is good that we discuss this topic because its impact, it coronavirus is heavily impacting the Chinese economy, but it has some global impact on global economic activities. So it's good that this forum inform our people some of these consequences and how we can mitigate them.
Thank you, Morris. Next, I have Mr. William Thomas Bernard King. William, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you so much, Dennis, for having me. Thanks to all of our viewers. Once again, we're back here Saturday live for our 3 p.m. business and economic marketplace. Focus on Liberia. And so, we talk all things economy with a focus on Liberia mainly, but today, definitely, this has an impact on Mama Liberia. But we're going to be talking about this thing from a global perspective, and also for our viewers and listeners who are in the United States or other parts of the world. Definitely, some of these numbers are going to be of good, of great concern. Once again, just globally, want to give words of encouragement to the families who have lost loved ones to this coronavirus that is impacting all of us. And we'll cover a long range, and also we want you to call in. We want this to be our interactive dialogue. So we want our listeners. Please post your comments on Facebook, or please call in. Before we go any further in the show, want to read our disclaimer for Focus on Liberia, so that we stay in the good grace with all of our listeners and viewers and so forth. So yeah, it goes. This content is for informational purpose only. You should not construe any such information or other material as legal, tax, investment, financial, or other advice. Nothing contained on our media or written documents constitute a solicitation, recommendation, endorsement, or offer by Focus on Liberia or any third-party service provider to buy or sell any securities or other financial instruments in this or in any other jurisdiction in which such media material may be shared. All content on the site is information of general nature and does not adjust the circumstances of any particular individual or entity. So, with that being said, Dennis, yes, coronavirus, this epidemic is hitting the business across and around the globe. Let me give you some numbers from the Wall Street so that we can form the context of the idea. So let me know when you're ready.
Sure. Well, thank you, gentlemen, and welcome to FOL Marketplace. We want for our viewers across the globe share the show. We're going to be posting our number very, very early in the game so that you take part. So we discuss this. It's having its impact on the global economy and definitely is, the Liberian economy. I have a nephew who is a nursing practitioner. He just sent me that he has just one confirmed case of the coronavirus where he works. And so it's coming close to home. It's impacting the economy, and it is expedient that we discuss it today. And so we're going to be discussing this. I mean, if you are on social media, you have gotten something about coronavirus in your inbox, I can definitely assure you have something. And so this is a concern for all of us, and it's also having its impact on the Liberian economy. So we're going to be delving into that. None of us here is medical experts, so we are not going to what the virus is what the symptoms are, and all these things that have to do with the medical part. All we're going to talk about today is the impact on the economy. And as William said, our hearts go out to all the victims, to all those who lost their lives and their families. Our hearts go out to them. They are Liberians studying in China. Some of them have gone home to Liberia because so it's having impact everywhere. So once again, welcome to Focus on Liberia. Share this show. Be ready to join the discussion by calling in. We'll post the number shortly. So let me start with you, Williams. Go ahead and give us.
Okay, thank you, Dennis. So just want to give some of our listeners, I mean, just the massive skills, give you guys some ideas. Basically looking from the Wall Street Journal, which has been kind of monitoring this. So I'm going to give you a few numbers, and so you kind of have an idea of the gravity of this situation, just globally from different areas. So there's a 25% drop in the container volume in February for the Port of Los Angeles. That's one of the largest seaport gateway from the Asian markets. Okay, so there's a 25% drop in the number of containers that come in, and that's a significant volume. Next thing is you're looking at the barrel of oil. Oil normally has been maybe at the 55 level. Right now is 50. At Friday was $50.52. So the Brent crude oil, that's pretty much when the oil comes from the ground, the price. And so that's the lowest that is been in the whole year, and is expected to go a little bit lower. That's why traders are anticipating. Technology, 15% drop in. Apple is anticipating 15% drop in its revenue. It gets 15% of its revenue from China. So the company said it will not be able to meet its fiscal second quarter financial guidance because of what's going on. More than 200,000 flights to and from within China have been canceled. More than 200,000 flights. So you can imagine that impact. $1.1 billion of ad commitments that have been secured by NBC Universal for the Olympics game of January. There's been possibility of those being postponed. So you can imagine that businesses who are paying for ad space right now, they've kind of just set on the sideline for now. So that's $1.1 billion. Something closer to home. If you use Old Spice, if you use Head and Shoulder, Pantene, Pro V, a lot of different hair products, herbal essentials, there's about 17,600. That's the number of different brands that rely on materials from China for Procter & Gamble, 17,600. So that's definitely huge. About 175 million, Walt Disney is going to take an operating income hit because it's going to look to close down the Shanghai and the Hong Kong theme park. So if they close, they're going to be losing revenue. They're going to do that for at least 2 months. So that's about 175 million. Now, most of you don't probably know this, but Disney 2019, Disney had a phenomenal, amazing year. They had the Avengers. They had many other box office hits. I mean, they were just going crazy. And they also launched their Disney streaming app. So in China, about 175. Now this is interesting. The China box office revenue for this year, Lunar New Year, the holiday season, compared with the holiday period last year was $840 million. This year, zero. Next thing, the GDP, China, they expect a 16% share of GDP from China. That's going to be impact. So China impact at a 16% globally. Another thing is the percentage of Chinese exporters reporting difficulties in shipping goods. 90%. So if you're in China right now and you work in the exporting of goods, almost 90%, and that's the Ministry of China, that Ministry of Commerce, they survey 7,000 companies. So out of the 7,000, you can imagine 6,300 experienced difficulties with shipping. 85%, the percentage of world toys that are made in China, toy companies are struggling to fill retail orders as the epidemic disrupts the industry supply chain. Adidas, experienced some challenges. 85% of decrease in business activities reported last week by Adidas. 85% drop just over the past from January 25th to February 19th. Vehicle sales, 92% decline in vehicle sales in China in the first 16 days of February. 92%. There's been almost a 10% decline in U.S. travel agency ticketing by dollar for just this past 7 days compared to the same period last year. Okay, so that's crazy. That's something to watch. Now this is interesting. We are on Zoom, right, Dennis? We're on Zoom. So listen to this. Zoom experienced a 38% increase in February for its shares of Zoom video communication. So that means that people are not traveling, but people are using these kind of video conference to try to keep the business going.
Right. So,
okay, and so shareholders.
Let's stop that far for now.
Yeah.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, you got the picture of the impact. And why you hear about China, because this virus started in China, and that's where it's spreading rapidly. There has been reports of it spreading more to other parts of the world, including the US. So that's the, William just read like a synopsis of the impact. So we're going to zoom in on that a little bit more.
Yeah, Dennis, that was just 30%.
Yeah.
So I don't want to keep going to the doom and gloom, but I think you get the idea here that this thing is serious. It's not no joke. And for a lot of people, their 401k this past 2 weeks, for those who even try to take a look at it, they were definitely not happy campers.
Right. So let me bring Morris in. Let's look at overall. It started in China, and let's sector by sector, the part of the economy it's impact and why. Okay. Why is this happening? Yeah.
Okay.
Morris, you take a start.
Yes, and Jazz, and the epidemic is very serious, and it actually affects the trade and the trade and commerce industry greatly, because as my colleague rightly put it, and the analysis he just performed, it just tells us how trade and commerce in China and around the world is greatly impacted by the spread of this virus. Virus is itself is dangerous. And again, I just want to extend my sympathy to family that lost their relatives in the hands of the virus, and pray for speedy recovery for those that are ongoing treatment in affected areas. And commerce is like people interacting with your given market space. And with the issue of the virus is something that can be transmitted from one person to another. So it makes it difficult for commerce to be very effective, because people cannot get in contact with one another easily, and people cannot transfer raw. So the issue of raw material and labor, it will greatly affect. Greatly be affected, and King just said that most people are using Zoom to carry on commercial activities, because coming close with people that you're transacting with is very dangerous. So there are a lot of issues that we need to consider in fighting the virus. We need to consider how we can respond to people that have been affected and how we can adjust economic activities. As countries that heavily rely on import goods to survive, like Liberia, will be quickly affected in price changes in the price of commodity, because it will create scarcities. And issue of drench. Drench is, and the way you were talking about transport, where and transportation and cost of goods from port to consumers. So the issue of drench is one of the issues that are impacting the commerce activities in and around China. And Liberia being a country that is relying heavily on imported goods to survive, and most of our goods come from China. If you look at our market, you'll see a lot of scarcities of goods that we consume from China on our market, because and currently in China, to transporting goods from land to seaport to other countries, it's becoming difficult because people scale down on the labor. People quarantine. People are being quarantined. They can't go to work. So these things affecting the economic activity, affecting trade, affecting commerce, and a lot of things going on. And we as a people, we just need to be prayerful, because we don't know where this is going. We don't know how we're going to solve it, and what will have in place to respond to some of the consequences that we'll have to live with after the virus.
Thank you. So then there's one of the industry that I want to look at. I want to talk about the hospitality industry. Somewhere like the Marriott. Okay, Marriott operates. Most people don't know this, but Marriott, they own hotels. They have the hotel brand, but they're also operators of hotels. So what that means is that you may have a high-end hotel and you love the Marriott brand and you love how they manage their hospitality services. And so you're going to employ Marriott to come in and do the whole management. Well, they're going to be impacted big time, especially in the Asian market. The numbers right now is about a 25 million reduction in their fee revenue per month. Now, if you look at that times 4 months, 5 months, that's about 125 million. Marriott makes a lot of money on their fees. So that hospitality industry at the higher corporate level is going to be impacted. And definitely there's a field, because in the service industry, sometimes they employ workers and their workers' pay may be a little bit higher than minimum wage. So you're going to have those impacted. Not a lot of hotel rooms operating, so you don't have to have your cleaning staff come in all the time, and so you're going to impact their reduction. You're going to see impact in reduction of the amount of hours. So that's a very scary one, where it comes down to where the mom and pop, right, like the blue collar employee. The hospitality industry is definitely going to be impacted big time, and is a little bit detrimental. Something else that, in terms of numbers, the airport, the traveling logistics industry, big time. You have if you go to the airport and you walk through airports, what do you see in the middle? You normally see the person selling shades, right? They have a shade stands. They have all these flight comfort goods that they're selling. They have charging apparatuses that they're selling, different things for your phones. You have some high-end stores, duty frees, and so forth. Well, if your airports are kind of empty, these folks are going to definitely suffer also. So this thing has kind of like a ricochet effect. And it's gonna be felt for a good time. But I think something that's essential is that hard times, they don't endure forever, right? This too shall pass. And now that folks are kind of in this, really the whole idea is, what do you do? Number one is, don't panic. Don't panic, because this thing shall pass. And you take some safety measures, which we're going to get into a little bit later. But those two industries are impacted severely: the hospitality industry and the travel industry. It says that there's a possibility hit to the revenue for airlines, airports, and other related industries, about $100 billion. And that's from the International Bureau of Aviation and Industry Consultant. So, people are definitely gonna feel that.
Mm. Thank you for that. And let's even take a step back. The coronavirus is spread through, contact and in the air and all that. So it means to control it, people got to stop touching each other. People got to stop movement. People are quarantined. They say, stay wherever you are. So that means people are not going to be traveling. People are not going to be going to work.
Dennis, do you remember 2014, the Ebola, right? They remember Ebola, and remember in our region, right? Guinea, Sierra Leone, Liberia. It kind of, the first few cases was in mid-March 2014. And by July, by Independence Day, July 26th, we had the president declare a state of emergency. And I remember just from the outside world looking at this whole thing, it was like, well, Liberia, we're very friendly people. We love to hug each other, share greetings, handshakes, and different things like that. That was just a microscope of some of the ways that we as humans interact. But that's not just simply an isolated incident just to that region. We see globally that it is universal greeting and universal interaction with individuals. There's the touching, there's the warmth of touch for humans with each other. So that's something that it's a global thing. And remember, economically, for a country like Liberia, we couldn't sustain something like that. And it severely impacted us big time. I mean, in a huge way in our economy. Most people don't know this, but a lot of the workers that were working for the Mount Coffee when that Ebola thing stopped, they stopped working for about 8 to 9 months. And so that pushed that project back, and that also delayed on how fast we could get electricity up into our country. So these things have severe economic impact, whether it's at the micro level or at the macro level. And my concern for Liberia is, how can we sustain something like this? I mean, it's just economic impacts and hit after hit after hit after hit after hit. And I'm hoping that this, incident doesn't just severely impact us now, especially with our government that's attempting to look and to try to build the economy. So it's going to be a very trying time.
Morris, I was reading the Guardian newspaper, and it said the coronavirus could cost global economy $1.1 trillion in lost income. Oxford Economics warned that the spread of the virus to regions outside Asia would knock 1.3% off global growth this year, the equivalent of 1.1 trillion lost in income. That's huge.
And that's another projection, but from other sources, even the stock market is projecting almost $4.3 trillion in losses in revenue. The stock market is heavily supported by the trade activity overseas, especially China. Most of the American companies most of the American manufacturing companies, they operate in China. The reason is China have the labor cost in China is very low. So most factories and industries around the world have production lines in China. And the spread of the virus is affecting and is creating huge labor turnover. Other people leaving the job, people being quarantined, people cannot go to industrial zones, people cannot go to work. And issue of drainage, what we're just talking about. Drainage is the movement of goods from one point to another. Those trucks rather are no longer moving commodity, perishable goods are sitting at the port, and some have met the expiration date, because perishable goods are supposed to be removed from the port to storage within certain time period. If it doesn't go within that time period, it gets expired, and you're talking about huge costs, huge economic activities that will be going down the drain. So the projection is huge, and for me, trillions of dollars is projected that the stock market will be losing. It will greatly affect the numbers. The numbers say coming up. There's no clear projection now, because the fact that there's no clear-cut cue for the virus. Scientists and experts are still doing studies to identify the cue for the virus. So the numbers are still rolling. The projection today could change in the next hour.
Yeah. So Morris, are you saying that you couldn't wait for Friday close of the market because it felt like it was just a downward spiral continuously? So Friday was good that it's closed, right?
Yes, and what I'm saying, King, the fact that we are not experts in science are not identify the cue for the virus, and it's spreading and across borders. The number will continue to change as we speak. As soon as we leave this show, if you go back and you look at the projection, you go to the Wall Street, you see the number changing. So there's a huge economic impact. It will greatly affect the global market, because it's like it affects trade, it affects labor. So we're talking about economic, macroeconomic activities. We're talking about labor. We're talking about market. How to get raw goods to the back to my raw goods. How to get raw goods to the market. How to get people going to work. So the whole global economy at a standstill. That today we don't have a clear projection. When we throw a number out there, yes, it will be a real-time number, but tomorrow that number could change.
So
something.
Hold on. Morris mentioned the stock market.
Yeah.
The stock market is not it's based on how people feel about stuff, right? So tell me the impact of this coronavirus on the stock market.
Yes,
hold on. The impact of this coronavirus on the stock market, and the implication and the impact of a crash in the stock market on our own economy. Let's connect the dots.
Yes, and stock increase based on the performance of companies on the stock market, because this stock, the increase of this stock depend what are these big companies, the Fortune 500 company, can maintain a projection on the stock market. If the profit projection of this company starts to fall, then it means the value of that stock starts to fall also. So and so the fact that most of the companies that have their production and line in China, most of the companies that are taking raw goods to China, and most of the flags that are carrying people to those places is greatly impacted. It will also affect the revenue. It will affect the profit. And when that's happening, it affects the overall performance of the company and its stocks.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Morris.
And Jack, you were talking about how it affects our own stock market in America, right? Jack.
Yeah.
You were talking about the impact on the stock market in America?
Wherever. Yes.
Yes, and it will greatly impact the stock market in America. It will greatly impact the GDP for a country, because we're talking about the market performance, and the market performance how to do how and we can what and labor efficiency and efficiency of supply chain.
Definitely. Well, Dennis, one of the things I want to say is where the rubber hits the road is that consumer sentiments and consumer feeling. There's research out there that supports this, that sometimes you spend money based on how you feel about your 401k. If your 401k is steady or is going up, you check, you go take a look, and you're like, okay, you know what, I can afford to buy that motorcycle, I can afford to splurge a little bit, so forth. So right now, when you're looking at your 401k and you're seeing that you've experiencing like a 5%, 6%, 7%, 18% decline, then what you tend to do is that you tend to hold on to your cash that you would normally spend. And in the case for us, for Liberia, remember, we remit quite a significantly a lot of money to Liberia. And so, if your 401k is being severely impacted in this way, it goes without saying that the type of money that you're going to be sending to Liberia, you're also going to either cut back or you're going to put it on hold for a while, until things look to stabilize a little bit better. So the folks in Liberia that are depending on these remittances that comes from the U.S., they're going to be impacted. If this thing continues for a little bit more, of course, corporations, their main goal is the value to the shareholders. And so potentially what you could see is that you could see layoffs. You could see layoffs, and you could see that definitely will impact Liberia from that side. And from the consumer, also, maybe some folks wanted to buy a house, or maybe some folks were planning on retirement. Don't forget that some people want their retirement to hit a certain number, then they can retire. They've done projections, spoken to the financial advisor, and the advisor may have told them, hey, at 1.5 million, you can kind of get out the working world. Well, if your portfolio was at 1.2 and you felt like you were almost there, and you woke up and from 1.2 it's at 1, then you have a little bit ways to go to get to that 1.5. So it impacts the amount of years you're going to be working, your sentiment, and also sending money back home to Liberia, where the rubber hits the road. That's very serious for those who. Now on the other side, if you're a younger person and you're in an industry that is maybe a little bit shielded from this, because of there's always a few industries, like you may look at the utility industry, where your value of your stock may drop, but layoff and stuff like that, something really drastic has to really happen. Industry like bleach, Clorox, some of those where you're not experiencing like a decline. Well, in times like this, you speak to your financial advisor, you do a little bit more work, and you go shopping for shares that have dropped in value, so that you can get in the game. Because before, the price were at a high premium, and so you couldn't really get in there. So if you're looking at long term, because there's a belief that with stocks and everything, the market, and this is not from me, but that there's a potential for it to go back up long term. So you got to look at both sides.
All right.
And Charles, let me just share this information.
Just hold on before you come in.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you're just joining us, this is Focus on Liberia. This is the FOL marketplace, where we discuss business, finance, and economics. Today, our topic is the impact of the spread of the coronavirus on the economy. And we have been talking about that. We have the number posted. We want you to join the discussion by calling 605-313-6004. The code is 791403. So join that, call the number so that you can share your experience and share your thoughts with us. We have a few comments on Facebook. This one is from Samuel Oduwale. Whenever there is a national or global disease affecting people like AIDS, Ebola, and coronavirus, will always affect the countries concerned, will have an impact on business as well. Sad for humanity. He also said global leaders are concerned because it will affect the country economy beyond politics. So that's a comment from now. So let me go back to you to end your thought, Morris.
Yes, as we were talking about and the stock market and the projection we're seeing today is real-time projection from the economic standpoint. And American companies in operating in China, there's a projection that revenue will fall by 50% as a result of the coronavirus, and that will have a ripple effect on how the stock markets and operates in days to come. And the fact that in less than 2 months plus just the hit of the virus, if the projection is 50% of drop in revenue, then and up to as we speak, there's no clear-cut cue for the virus. There's a clear indication that revenue will fall more than 50% because if we have a 50% projection of 50% drop, there's a serious problem. We can have a serious crack on the stock market because this company revenue will be greatly affected in days to come because we have 50% drop in the revenue and the numbers is still counting and there's no clear-cut cue. So these issues that certainly we in America will need to consider because we will also start seeing production activity will start to drop, company will start to lay off people, and it will have a great impact, as my brother King Reddy put it, on our 401k. So there's a global crisis. It will greatly affect our stock market because we have more companies, more factories in China that produce and revenue impact the performance of our stock in the US.
Thank you. Let me bring in a caller.
Dennis, while we bring in that caller, something to kind of give you an idea, something else. Macau is like the Vegas of Asia, okay? Macau is like the Vegas of Asia. And, Chinese New Year and everything. Can you imagine that for about, I would say for about 18 days, all the casinos were closed. And for the last 8 days of February, 12 out of the 41 was closed. So just to give you something about that. And they do way more than Vegas in terms of gambling. So that's another industry. Let's take the caller.
That's massive. Caller, you are live. Your name and where you calling from?
Yes, sir, Mr. God. This Monu from Vegas.
Oh, and now we're talking about Vegas.
Oh,
PA from Vegas. Go ahead, Monu. We are discussing coronavirus and the impact on the economy.
I know. A pretty sobering topic. But there are a few things here. First thing, if we see a crash in the stock market, for individual investors, that's a silver lining. That means it's time to go and buy stocks on the cheap. So that's not a bad thing. It's bad for companies, the companies that float their stock on the market. So another thing is, let's take it back home to Liberia, right?
And
a lot of
a
Liberians.
little louder, Joe. Your voice is low to me.
Yeah, a lot of Liberians.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
A lot of Liberian small businesses depend on imports from China. In fact, a lot of them make the trip to Guangzhou in China. Guangzhou is like a little African beachhead in China, where you've got probably about 500,000 Africans there, mostly trading things, buying and selling goods, going back to the mainland and selling goods. A lot of what Liberia also imports, most of our imports in terms of commodities, food and stuff like that, come from China as well. So that's another impact that might bring shock to the Liberian economy, because you have a lot of factories in China that are shutting down, that are closing down. But let me just say this, and there was a British, I think it was a newspaper called The Guardian during Ebola. And one of the writers, the editor, they did an editorial, and they warned the world that these companies, these institutions like the WHO and a lot of NGOs, they like to hear this thing about pandemic. So they use this scare tactics, and what happens is that if they use that scare tactic, they get more funding from governments, like the United States government will say, okay, we increase our budget to WHO, or the British government say, okay, Oxfam will give Oxfam another $10 million. Because if you remember during the Ebola crisis, the Ebola situation, where there was a prediction that something like 250,000 Africans will die, and all the institutions within that region will collapse. I think it was Oxfam that came out with it. And the Guardian, I think it was the Guardian or the Evening Standard, they warned, said, do not fall for this, I wouldn't say a hoax, but don't fall for this scare tactic. The situation is under control from what I've learned in China. Most of what they're doing, they're just taking corrective measures, ensuring that people, hand sanitation, put on your mask and all that. And so, it's a crisis, but not at the proportion that, some of these NGOs are placing it, because it's in their interest that whenever there's a disease, that they see an increase in funding. Okay? And for Wall Street, it's about time that the market saw a decline, so some of us can go and buy stocks on the cheap. So I shared no tears for them.
Well. Let me ask the caller question. Caller, how about the guy that was about three weeks or 4 weeks from retiring?
Yeah, what about him?
Give us more.
Well, the guy who's retiring 3 to 4 weeks, and he looks at his 401k, he just lost 10 to 15, 20%.
Well, there's not much that can be done about that, but I can tell you, stocks will see a rebound. And you're pretty sophisticated. It's a cycle that, during these sort of trying times, you see a crash, and in 6 months to 8 months, you see a rebound. It happens all the time. So, if the guy is about to retire and he looks at his 401k and he sees a dramatic drop in value, I don't see why he should, if he's sophisticated, he will understand that this is a cycle, okay? It goes up, comes down, it goes up, it comes down. So not much can be done in that arena.
Thank you, Mr. Moyo.
Thank you, Mr. Moyo.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, gentlemen.
I see Maurice. I see he's celebrating. The caller is celebrating to buy stock as lower price, but I don't know why he's not concerned about homeowners, because homeowners could lose their home because when the pandemic continues, and it will affect companies, and this company will start to lay off. When start turnover starts to increase, what's happening to homeowners?
Right.
They will pay their mortgages.
No, I don't think he's not concerned. He's only raising another side of the argument that because the idea of pandemic scare is all on the internet.
Yeah.
So
Well, Dennis, you are in the health industry, right? You're in the health industry. So right now you are sitting pretty good. And if this thing continues, there's going to be a drop in the interest rate. Potentially. So are you about to go to do a refi on your $50 million home?
And that's the area I wanted to come to, because there's always a positive side, or there's always someone gaining out of anything that happened. Like someone who is selling the face mask now is making money. I was reading that in fact the face mask in China has been imported from Nigeria, and the price went up from something like 500 naira to 1,500 naira.
Wow.
So let's talk about, so if you are the one producing those equipment, you're going to make money, and the company is going to say hire more people. So let's look at that side. What are some of the silver linings?
Yes, and the virus has its own positive and negative side in terms of the economic impact, and globally it gives other commodities on the global market and certain value. So some commodities that were being sold at lower cost, price will not increase because the demand of those products is increasing also. So the market operates through price and demand and supply. When the demand of the commodity is high, it triggers the price. So other commodities, especially those ones that will be used to respond to the virus, will have a huge cost tag on them. And as you just read it, said, or face mask that used to be sold at certain costs are now increased in Nigeria. So these things will happen. But I look out for the large scale, especially where it affects people, the drivers of of global economies, like the airline, the tourism industry, the manufacturing industries. So it have a greater impact than the benefit. The benefit is there, but on the overall, the impact, because it affects the huge portion of the global market. So it have a huge effect than the benefit.
Yeah, Dennis, I mean, to some of the things that you're talking about, and to buttress what Morris said, right? There's winners, there are losers, pros and cons, even with something like this. And if you're in a position to maybe take advantage of some of the positive sides to this, then you want to make sure that you actually do it to better position yourself financially for your future and for your kids' future and so forth. So it does impact. I mean, right now, the United States, we've been a little bit insulated. We've had a couple of cases in terms of, and when I say insulated, I'm not talking about the global market right now. I'm just talking about the incidents that have happened. So on that end, I don't necessarily think that there's a big panic right now at the moment in terms of from the virus side, but in terms of the market is reflecting quite a bit of bit of volatility that needs to be watched and needs to be monitored closely. Um, so you have to always consider that.
Okay. Let's go to Liberia and see what can be done. We've talked about the impact and the connection Liberia has to the global economy, especially China and the US, of course. So what should policymakers be thinking about? What can we do?
Are you talking about in terms of the traveling back and forth?
No,
Will they
in terms
allow
of
people to come in, or are you talking
no,
about
no, in
from
terms
their
of
goods
the
and
impact
services?
of the coronavirus on the Liberian economy. How do
Yeah.
we prevent that? What do we do?
Oh, what do we do? Oh,
Yeah.
um, well, unfortunately, one of the things is, this is out of your control. So, number one, you have to endure. You have to wait it out. You have to wait it out. Hope things subside. You have to be in constant communication with the Chinese government. They're a big ally in Liberia, although some people would like to argue that. But the fact is that they're in Liberia and they've been with us during tough times. So as a whole, you want to keep the communication open with the Chinese embassies, have the relationship, go there, encourage them, express sympathy, and try to use this as an opportunity to make the relationship and the bond between China and Liberia a little bit stronger. So those are a couple of things that are right there that you can definitely do. The other thing is, unfortunately, you have to be very careful with your spend, with your money and how you're spending it right now in this time, because you may need that money to do something, do do something substantial with it. So those are the three areas that I really see. And I also use this time, if the port is less busy, maybe this is a good opportunity for the folks that work at the port in Liberia to look at the processes, procedures, see if they can update it, fine tune it, and make it a little bit better. So and also for lastly, there are going to be people who are not going to get paid in Liberia. They were making that 75, relying on the 75, $100, and right now, that salary is going to be put on hold. My advice to them is, tough times doesn't last for a long time, although it may feel that way. And try to find a good support group to make sure that you maintain your sanity. You don't get depressed and you don't think about taking your own life. So that's really what I have to say on that.
So Morris, in Liberia, we have the economic management team. Our people have their proverb. They say, while we're expecting the rain, that's the time we set our trap in the water. You don't wait until it falls before you start setting traps. So our economic management team, our finance minister, Carmen's, and all the people connected, LRA, the Freeport, and everybody, what are we supposed to be doing now? What can we tell consumers? What can we tell the people? How do we behave expecting that this coronavirus is impacting everybody in every country? And
Yeah,
eventually things can get worse.
yeah, and John, from the macroeconomic perspective, and I expect the economic management team to be engaged with the business community because and the the outbreak of the virus will affect trade and commerce in Liberia quickly because Liberia is an import-driven economy where we import everything that we consume, and the fact that the issue of dream and the transporting goods from one point to another is becoming a challenge, and goods coming into Liberia will be on a low scale, and which will reduce which will increase will reduce the prices of commodity because the demand because it will create some shortage of commodities on the market, and when that's happening, it will increase the prices of the commodity. It will also affect the projected 1.4% GDP and that were projected by World Bank and IMF that Liberia will grow. Liberia GDP will grow by 1.4%. That will be greatly affected because the commercial activities, the market will be greatly affected. Trade activities will be greatly affected. Prices will be affected. So a lot of things will be happening in our economy, and moreover, our economy is very vulnerable. We are already struggling to resuscitate the dying economy, and with this outbreak, the economic management team to engage with the business community and improve on the issue of communication, because it's all about communicating the issues, what the issues are, how can the citizen get involved to prevent the spread, and how we can provide incentives to business people, because it all come to the issue of the taxes, because if our business people is still carrying the huge tax burden and our goods is not coming as expected, and some of the goods that they have in the country, they will start to increase the prices. So the economic management teams should start meeting the business community. They should start discussing the challenges, the business, because the business community know the challenges. You and I don't know all of the issues they're going through. We will know it from the surface, but from within, we don't know. So they need to sit across the table with the business association and all the stakeholders in the economy to discuss the issue and provide incentives to affect the price of commodity. Because if this thing continue and the projected and supply that business expected to supply our market is not forthcoming, it will affect the prices, and the ordinary people who carries the breading.
Thank you. I have a question on Facebook from Samuel Oduwole. He said, gentlemen, do insurance companies have the right to increase their insurance on properties and other policies? I don't know if that's relative to the coronavirus. Yes,
insurance policy will definitely increase. Insurance policy will definitely increase because there's a high possibility that cases and health issues will be at an increase. And the more you go to hospital, it puts more it create more cost on the insurance company. So for insurance company will be increasing their costs for unexpected, unforeseen circumstances. So policies will then increases.
All right, thank you, guys. Let's
Dennis, let me answer that. You know, in terms of insurance, you know, there's also in California for the past 3 to 4 years, we've had these fires that happen almost every year. Before they weren't common, and now they become more and more common. And so if your insurance premium, insurance companies looks at that, and we should also be mindful that before an insurance company can increase their rate, they have to get approval and review from the insurance commissioner. So that's something where in Liberia, I believe we have a commissioner that oversees that. And so although there's the idea or the business case to increase rates and so forth, it does need to get approval from the commissioner. Thank you.
Thank you. And ladies and gentlemen, we are about to close this broadcast, but let's talk about for our last segment. Let's talk about more of a prevention. You know, in Liberia, when I say prevention, it's all about the economy. Mm-hmm. What are some of the economic areas, you know, or how do people sit down and think about this? I know Morris mentioned sitting down with the business community. What's about things like interest rate, tariff, reducing or import, increasing local consumption or local productivity, investing in this sector or that sector? What are some of the economic variables that our policymakers can play with so as to lessen the impact of this thing on Liberia?
Well, the I think what you're talking about is it time for an economic stimulus? Is it time for an economic stimulus? What can be done to encourage um, the economy? I'm not sure if we are there yet with what's going on, because obviously you're always going to pick your safety, right? The safety of your folks, of your constituents, of your people, over generating certain things that has to do with monetary value. But once this is kind of stable, and there's a level of comfort where we feel that the coronavirus isn't a threat to Liberia and so forth, our government will definitely have to pull out a lot of innovative tools that is at its that is available in order to look to stimulate the economy. But keep in mind that we are in a situation where our resources to do something like that may be a challenge. But everything could be on the table, from lowering tariffs to looking at tax codes, improving those areas. Maybe government is getting grant, or maybe there's a form of discount at the window for banks to be able to lend money at a lower interest rate. So there's a lot of things that can be used. Now, whether Liberia is ready for that or not, waits to be seen.
Morris?
Yes, and Jad, for in the context of Liberia, it is very high because for us, our economy is struggling and our revenue envelope is very small. So there are a lot of good ideas coming from across the table from stakeholders, policies makers, but all these ideas boil down to raising the revenue to fund those ideas. And our revenue envelope is very small. And one of the things King stressed that looking at our task code, reviewing some of those policies that and give local importer incentive to able to 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 supply the market, to reduce and the interest of imported goods on our market, because our demand for imported product will greatly affect us in times like this. But I would want policies maker to mostly focus on um supporting the local contents, supporting our local farmers, supporting and small businesses, and lowering and taxes. This kind of thing helps to stimulate the market and provide incentive for growth. So these are the kind of area we need to look, and government should also and look in the health sector, look at the issues and start to, because you can't wait until the virus hits our country before you start to prepare. We need to look into our health sector, do a walkthrough, do a so system analysis of our health sector to see where we have challenges and how can we address these challenges, because it's better to start to look at where your horse is leaking and try to fix them before the rainy days, because when the rain starts to fall, you can't go over the horse to fix to patch the hole. You have to wait until the rain stops, and before the rain starts, it cause a lot of damages, and that cause you huge, that will impact your revenue greatly. So it is good that we stay observing the process. We improve our communication process. We in communicating preventive measures, and we strengthen our health sector. Try to identify and place that we can identify to quarantine people, build new facilities, just set aside for quarantine people affected with dangerous virus. These things will help to prepare us for for the rainy days.
Thank you. Well, I think we cover a good portion of this. So we're going to be closing the broadcast, but I want to announce that beginning tomorrow we're going to have a Liberian chef, a Liberian-born chef, Chansey Yongo. He's going to be joining us on Forum Liberia to talk about what he called Liberian food with a twist. Let me show you Chansey. So Chansey Yongo will be with us tomorrow to discuss Liberian food with a twist. He's a Liberian-born chef or chief cook. And he's been doing this and he has gone to a good height. And we want to have him tomorrow on Focus on Liberia to share with us his successes, what he's doing and what, and you'll be surprised, man. The guy got a lot of recipe that when you talk about, your mouth to start to water. So he'll be here tomorrow. I want to thank you guys for your time. We want to thank our viewers, those who call in, those who post their comments. We want to say thank you so much. I don't see any more comment here. Okay, few comments here from Samuel again. He said, I think we should start warning and bringing awareness to the public now and the impact on their lives in Liberia. I mean, the government should give, public advance warning when it comes to this thing. Ebola was there, and then there was a very good education that went on. According to those who were in the heat of it, that really helped to slow down the virus. So I agree with you, Samuel. I think we should start doing the same now. And that's why we thought it wise today to talk about the economic impact so that people start thinking about that now. And our health workers and people in the health sector start to, we shouldn't really rely on these chain messages going on Facebook. Some of them are purely outrageous. Let's make some conscious effort to educate on the spread of the virus and what can be done, and then be prepared before, unfortunately, it strikes. But I want to thank all of you for coming. Next week, we hope to talk about the Liberian tax code on this forum. And if you are in Liberia, you are paying taxes or not, we're going to be talking about taxes next week. Gentlemen, your final and closing statement so we can end the broadcast.
Thank you, Dennis. I think I'll go first with this one. Excuse me. On tlcafrica.com, for those of you who are familiar with that, the government of Liberia has posted some stuff about folks traveling or coming into the country from those areas that have been affected. There's a 14-day quarantine. So want to commend our government. Remember, this show is not a political show. It's apolitical, and we're talking about this. And so we just want to make sure that we kind of highlight some things that positive that we're actually doing. And I think this is in the right step. We are learning from the Ebola, and not only have we learned, but we see with the coronavirus, it has given us an opportunity to pretty much apply some of the things that we've learned. To all of our listeners and viewers, we want to say thank you. Once again, this is the Focus on Liberia Marketplace, where we talk about business and the economy and how it impacts us. We look forward to the next show with the chef. That will probably encourage me to go in the kitchen to maybe make something. As you know, for one of the things for me, Dennis, is that I don't mind making the stuff, but it's that I gotta go shopping to find all the ingredients. And now in the supermarket, you got like 7 different brands of cayenne pepper. You get there, you're like, man, which one should I get? I just gonna get some cayenne pepper, but there's 7 to 10 different brands. So, It's a very interesting experience. So looking forward to what the chef has to say. We want to encourage our viewers to tune in, and thank you for joining Focus on Liberia.
Thank you. Morris?
Yes, and once again, I want to say thank you to Global Actor for the concern raised in regards to the Ebola virus and the support and World Health Organization is giving countries around the world. But I want to encourage the Liberian government to focus on communicating the preventive measures. It's very important. And there's a saying that says prevention is better than cure. And we also need to look at our health sector besides communicating the preventive measures. We need to visit our health sectors and see and do a system analysis to identify some of the challenges they're having at those hospitals to see how the national government can make intervention before we start experiencing the virus. And another thing again, I've been following a call by some Liberians calling for Liberian government to repatriate and Liberian students study in China rather. I strongly believe it is a wrong idea to bring back our people from China because we don't know. It's a high possibility of bringing them could give rise to the spread of the virus in our country, and we are very vulnerable. Our health system is very poor. So what we need to do is to work with our counterpart, our Chinese counterpart, the embassies, and our international partners to see what kind of support we can provide for our students while they study in China. What kind of support we can provide for them to ensure they are properly quarantined, they follow the rules and respect the quarantine process until we can see, so we all can jump over this. But bringing them back home, I feel is the wrong ideas because we are very vulnerable. We don't have the mechanism in place to quarantine and they will go within the community. Our people are not very sensitive to hygiene. So, and the one thing is communicating the preventive measures, but people, it's not a culture. Like we live in America, the child knows that he or she goes to the bathroom before you return, you have to wash your hand. To our very workplaces, we have instructions on our bathroom walls that tells us you have to wash your hand before you return back to work. So we don't have these systems in place. So the vulnerability is very high. And so we even communicate to our people, but the assurance that they will implement those measures is 50 is 70-30. So we can rely on our people because they are not really hygiene sensitive. So I think we can just provide nurses support to our brothers in China are concerned about our health, but it's not a good idea to bring them back home.
Morris, before you conclude, it's good you brought that up because I have a family member in China too, and that topic came up. And I agree with what you said, that I think in China, especially where they are in school, I don't think the virus was there at that time. So, and China had better mechanism to take care of this than us. So bringing them back just like that, I think is risky.
Yeah.
All right, but gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for your time tonight. I want to thank our viewers. I want to thank everybody continuing to support us.